All right, what's more important, 10 days until Valentine's Day or 5 days until the Super Bowl?
Depends on who you talk to.
Well, this is a live look at New Orleans. Isn't it beautiful?
Well, they got some protests going on. Something's happening.
Looks like people walking around a street. Anyway, Bourbon Street, courtesy of EarthCam. Thank you so much for these beautiful images of your lovely town. Broncos fans, of course, are going to be on their edge of the seats this Sunday, rooting against the Chiefs, rooting hard. Watching the game, for anyone, could impact your heart. So let's check in with our 9 News medical expert and cardiologist, Dr. Payal Kohli. So what do the studies tell us about heart attack risk during things like Super Bowl Sunday?
Yeah, it doesn't just apply to Super Bowl, any sporting events really, but the day of the event, about a 15% higher risk of having a heart attack. And a study that tells us that if your team loses and you're a huge fan, the 2 weeks afterwards, a higher risk of dying from heart disease.
Come on.
For those people that are fans, yes.
You always bring us the most enlightening
afterwards. So those 2
stories.
weeks after your team loses, you actually internalize all of that stress, that adrenaline, all those stress hormones, and that can actually trigger heart attacks. In fact, they've even looked at blood vessel function. And during the game, when you're all amped up and maybe you're smoking a cigar, drinking some alcohol, the blood vessel function actually alters in people.
Is this just fandom, or is this now, especially since everyone seems to gamble?
That's a huge part of it, Tom. I'm glad you brought that up.
You get invested in there.
Yes. Well, we talk about how to reduce risk, and one of the things they say is don't bet on the game.
Yeah.
And don't watch the game alone. Watch it with friends. If you go to a sporting bar or something.
But just don't watch it alone.
Yeah. But in a sports bar, for example, you're more likely to feed off of each other and increase your level of anxiety, what's called sympathetic activation or fight or flight response, which is what causes inflammation and blood clots and heart attacks. So if you're watching it with friends, not enemies maybe, but friends, it actually can help reduce some of that and you can cope together. And they say actually listening to sportscasters talk about the game after a loss can help you cope with it as well and reduce some of those stress hormones.
Kind of thing. I think
way to go,
where
sportscasters.
they talk about it. Yeah, way to go. All sports from past and present. You know what though? Asking for a friend. Some people get worked up around me, and that causes me anxiety. Like way too much anxiety. I'm like, I want to leave the room because they're screaming. The dog gets scared. I mean, I'm like, stop it. I can't be around you. It's hard on me, and I'm not even invested the same way.
It's true, and one of the tips that I have actually is 4 quarters equals 4 breaks. So that means you get up and maybe even leave the house, take a quick little walk outside. You're not sitting there absorbing all of that kind of amped up energy the whole time, and you're being sedentary, right? When you're sitting there for 4 quarters watching the game, eating all your snacks and drinking your alcohol, not just the stress, but all the food and alcohol is also causing problems.
So I just want more dip.
Well, let's use stereotypes here, because when you talk about cigars and alcohol and things, you're talking about men. Is the number that different, men versus women? There are more women fans now than ever for football, but it used to be a man's domain.
Yep. So we're not seeing so many gender differences, but what we are seeing clearly is if you have high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, you've had a stent, you've had a stroke, you are very high risk for this type of sudden increase in your stress hormone. So you want to be really, really careful if you're older or you have any pre-existing health problems. Certainly men can indulge in more of these types of behaviors. We've talked before on the show about how many calories we're consuming. And again, men tend to consume more calories than women. And because men are a little bit bigger, they can actually hold their alcohol a little bit better than women can. So I think there's not as much gender difference, but certainly if you have pre-existing medical problems, you have a target sign on you when it comes to this. So you really want to take a step back from the game. I know we love our sports teams, but you don't want to be so emotionally invested that you're raising your blood pressure, causing arrhythmias, causing heart attacks.
4 quarters, 4 breaks, and that's not just going to the bathroom. I mean, like, you really should
get up and just
try to move around a little bit.
Yeah, get outside the house, take a quick little walk, and then I say every time the players take a break, you take some water, because that helps with all the sodium, all the alcohol, everything else that you're having.
Water. Water, water, water. And in the meantime, just laugh with the commercials, cry at the good ones, the whole bit. Okay.
And have fun. Enjoy the game.
Fun.
Laugh.
Thanks, Dr. Kohli.
Yes.
She gave us a recipe for having fun.
Eventually, we got there.
Okay. You can find more from Dr. Kohli on 9news.com/Dr. Kohli.